Sixers, the Nets, they have the best shot at 14%. The Mavs at 6.7, although that might seem far off. We've seen them do the unthinkable in terms of the draft lottery before. The top three prospects that we're all wondering where they're going to end up. We got Dybantsa, Cameron Boozer, and Darren Peterson. And we're going to get into best fits for all of these guys coming up. And for that, we want to bring in our very own Adam Finkelstein. We're going to go through best fits for these top prospects, starting with Dybantsa. So the fit here is the Miami Heat, which is really fun to think about when we think about a coach like Spo and what he's going to be able to do with a talent like that. It might just be what Heat fans need to hear after what they've been enduring over the last couple of seasons.
I would argue they should have started to think about this maybe a year or so ago and not battled for the play-in and just said, you know what, maybe tanking's not such a bad thing for 1 year. This is a franchise that I think has a 1% chance of getting the number one pick now. But I would argue that, I don't know if stranger things have technically happened. Dallas was strange, but maybe not stranger last year. This would be phenomenal for Dybantsa because AJ is the proven scorer. He's the assumed number one pick in this draft, somebody who's going to come in and be able to get buckets right away. Now, the big knock on AJ, for all the compliments, right? The big knock is that the defensive intensity isn't always where it needs to be. He doesn't always have that sense of urgency. He doesn't maximize his tools on that defensive end of the floor. Well, that would not be allowed in Miami. And if he goes to some place where the culture can mandate that he gets the best out of himself on a daily basis, we're talking about someone who has a significant upside. You're looking, the best version of Dybantsa could end up being one of the best players in the NBA. And Miami is the place that I think could really bring that out of him. Now, as I said, only a 1% chance that they get the number one pick. But could they make a move? Could they move up on lottery night? Could AJ slip a couple? You never know. What I do know is this. We've only got about 3 days left to dream about it. So today's the day to talk about a potential Dybantsa to Miami Heat fit.
Hey, why not? And you know what? To your point, Fink, we've seen crazier things happen. I don't think any of us thought that the Mavs were going to get it last year and land Cooper Flag, and here they are. Next up, we're talking about Darren Peterson, where the fit here is the Nets. So tell us more about what a guy like Darren Peterson and his extreme talent can bring to an organization like that.
So I think for someone like Darren Peterson, an ideal scenario is if he goes to a franchise that is willing to build around him for the foreseeable future. The Nets are a team that really is looking for their next star. A lot was made of their 2025 NBA draft when they had 4 first-round draft picks, but they came out of that without necessarily their alpha for the future. They've got some nice pieces. They made nice strides this year, but they still need a future star. They need a face of the franchise to sell to that fan base, and Darren Peterson would give them that. Remember, this is a player that started the year atop most draft boards, and I would argue we didn't see the best version of him all year at Kansas. The best version of him could very well still be the prospect with the highest upside in this draft. Talking about someone who's got great positional size, length, typically strength, physicality when he's at 100%. Combine that with the shot making we saw in college, with the playmaking in high school. Again, that's not someone that Kansas fans were overly familiar with this year. But if we get that version of Darren Peterson, it's very possible we look back 5 years from now and say he was the best player in this draft. And for Brooklyn, it would give them the face of the franchise moving forward.
All right, so we talked about Darren Peterson, Dybantsa, now the other guy, the big three, Cameron Boozer, where I'm not going to lie, Adam, this fit seems a little bit unfair, but it's more about assets to trade, and that's all playing a factor.
There's some intel behind this, too. So the speculation of Oklahoma City coveting Cameron Boozer has been lingering around basketball circles for a long, long time. Going back, I'd say, over a year. Everybody knows they've been stockpiling picks. They own the Clippers pick this year. And remember, the Clippers started this season by winning only 6 of their first 27 games. Now, thankfully for Clippers fans, they rebounded. Unfortunately for OKC fans, that means the Thunder's chances of landing in the top 3 of this draft are very low. But OKC has the assets, if they wanted to make a move to move up in this draft. And Cameron Boozer gives them the best win-now player in the draft. Combine him with Chet Holmgren, combine him with Jalen Williams, and they have arguably the best front court in the NBA for the next decade. And oh, by the way, they've got the MVP in the backcourt, so I'd say the defending champs would be in a pretty good position. Is that enough for them to empty their future war chest of assets for? I don't know, but I can tell you this. The OKC Cameron Williams speculation has been running rampant for a long, long time.
All right, let's go to Caleb Wilson here. And of course, out of UNC, his season was cut short because of injuries. And the team that you have him pairing with as the best fit is a team that we know that can develop talent really, really well.
Yeah, the Memphis Grizzlies have a pristine draft record in recent years. And the way I approached this was I asked myself, who would be open to kind of going against the grain and taking Caleb Wilson in the top 3. Wilson is number 4 on the CBS Sports big board. He's outside the big 3 on almost every big board you will find on the internet. Memphis is an organization that, aside from their tremendous recent draft history, they also have a pattern of going against the grain. When they picked Zach Edey 2 years ago, that was a contrarian pick. Last year, when they moved up to take Cedric Coward, that was viewed as very, very aggressive. And both of those picks look tremendous in retrospect. This is also arguably the best second-round drafting team in recent NBA draft history. So I think they trust their own evaluations, and I do think they would be willing to kind of go against the grain and say, you know what, we're going to pass on somebody in the big 3 for an opportunity to get this guy because he's such an athlete. And if you think Caleb Wilson can shoot down the road, you have someone who could make a really strong claim to unseat that big 3. Remember, those big 3 have been pretty much locked in for well over a year now, and Caleb Wilson is someone who could mix things up a little bit on draft night.
Okay, next up we have the SEC Player of the Year, the SEC Freshman of the Year, and Darius Acuff. So what is the best case scenario for him in terms of a landing spot?
It's somewhere where they put the ball in his hands and they just let him rock offensively, just to say it plainly, because this is one of the most polished guards that we have seen offensively in a long, long time. And when I look at teams that would make sense there, obviously places like Brooklyn, that could be a fit, but we already mentioned them for Darren Peterson. I think Sacramento would make a lot of sense. This is a team that has really bottomed out at this point, and they need to kind of flip this roster, invest in young assets. And so giving the ball to Darius Acuff and seeing just what his offensive ceiling is, that would make a lot of sense, especially if they land outside the top 4. Remember, there's a bunch of point guards perceived to be in that 5 through 9 range on this draft. Beauty's going to be in the eye of the beholder, but if Sacramento were to land that 5th pick, I think Acuff would make a lot of sense because you could give him the ball from day one and you could find out just how high his ceiling is on that offensive end of the floor.
What about Kingston Flemings? Because there's a lot of talk about his ability being able to get to his spot and then his speed as well, where there's been comparisons to De'Aaron Fox. What is a good case for him, best case scenario?
So Kingston is someone who's a big-time athlete, arguably the best athlete of these lead guards. He's got tremendous pace. He can really rise up at the rim. He's got a good pull-up game, and I think he's probably the best defender of these 4. The big question mark is his shooting. Now, it was way better than expected this year at Houston. That's part of the reason why he is as high up in these mock drafts as he is, but I still think it's a variable moving forward. So I like someplace like Washington, where they've got Trey Johnson in there, and they've got defensive-minded front court pieces. Trey Johnson is a shot maker. He's a scorer, and he would be a very nice complement to Kingston Fleming's rim pressure, his ability to drive and kick. And I think Fleming's on-ball defense would help alleviate some of the concerns about Johnson. So I think that could be a really intriguing 1-2 backcourt punch for the Wizards. I like Washington as a spot for Kingston Fleming.
Yeah, Washington, a 14% chance to get that #1 overall pick. So it's looking pretty good, but we'll see what goes down there with Washington. All right, Keaton Wagler. This is a guy who was so interesting to follow throughout the tournament because he really boosted his draft stock with that significant run that Illinois had. And the fit here is the Jazz, Fink.
Right. The Jazz have a point guard who just exceeded all expectations. Keontae George is coming off that breakout year. So you ask yourself, if they fall in that 5 to 9 range, where we're assuming there's 4 different point guards who are going to come off the board, who's the one that would make the most sense? I think with George, you've got to go with someone who has on-off ball versatility to pair next to him. And this is that player because Wagler has terrific positional size. He's got great gravity as a shooter. And you combine those two things, it means he's going to be just as good off the ball as on. Now, his feel for the game is really exemplary. So he, too, is the legit big point guard. But Keontae George is a scorer. So these two could go back and forth with that on-off ball versatility. The key would be whether or not they can hold up defensively. But for Utah, again, if they have to pick between these 4 freshman one-and-done point guards, I think Wagler could be the one that makes the most sense for them.
And finally, we're talking about Michael Brown, where we know medicals are a big factor, played in just 21 games because of an injury, a lower back issue, where he also missed the tourney. So what is a good fit here, all things considered, if he is healthy pushing forward?
So I think what Michael does best is with his ability with the ball in his hand. I think he's a big-time shooter. I think he's a big-time passer. I think his skill set is exemplary. I actually think it's better than the numbers showed last year at Louisville because he was asked and often tried to do so much. I think a good fit would be in a place like Chicago. We don't know how many long-term building blocks they have yet, but Josh Giddey appears to be one. Now, Giddey's a big guard who can play make, who can make plays for other people. He's got really good size, but he's not a great shooter. So you put someone in there who can really space the floor like Brown, and they would complement each other really well. The Bulls, for all the young assets they acquired this year and for all the young guards on their roster, they really still don't know who their point guard of the future is. I think Michael Brown, especially if they're interested in keeping Giddey long-term, would be a really good fit and could be their floor general for the foreseeable future.
Adam, we certainly appreciate it as we're looking